All right, y'all. So Nathan J. Robinson of Current Affairs magazine wrote an article, and it's about John Fetterman. Now, John Fetterman is running against Dr. Oz. It's for the U.S. Senate seat in Pennsylvania, and he's been very effective, let's say, and my evidence for that is he's up in all the polls. Now, that's impressive, especially because there is a wave Republican election that is supposed to happen. You know, the conventional wisdom is like, well, whenever the White House is won by one party in the next midterm election, the other party usually has a wave. And in recent history, that's accurate. Now, I don't think it's a law of nature. I don't think it is perfectly cyclical. I think if you govern effectively, then you can break that streak. But recently, since neither party really serves the will of the American people, that has happened. So Fetterman is one of the only Democrats who's up, and he's running a very interesting and different campaign. So Nathan J. Robinson is a leftist writer, Current Affairs magazine, and here's what he says. John Fetterman should ditch the extremely online messaging. Okay, so let's read some of his argument before I say anything on the topic. Relentlessly trolling Dr. Oz on Twitter is funny, but we desperately need a campaign with a strong, clear, progressive agenda. One of Bernie Sanders' best qualities is that he is laser focused on the issues that matter most to everyday people. You cannot get Bernie off topic. He does not want to talk about himself. He even resisted criticizing his opponents. Bernie is the most on-message politician in American public life, hammering relentlessly on the need for adequate health care, tackling the climate catastrophe, and raising the minimum wage. Ben Burgess and I recently analyzed the debate that Bernie did with Lindsey Graham, in which Bernie cleaned Graham's clock, in large part because Bernie focused on exposing how Republicans do not care about the needs of working people. So I broke that down as well. I broke that debate down as well, and I agree with their assessment that Bernie obliterated Lindsey Graham. And of course, obviously, needless to say, I'm a huge Bernie supporter. This is an important source of Bernie's appeal. People get the sense that he is not in politics because he enjoys it. He does not seem to enjoy it, but because he is devoted to improving the lives of others. John Fetterman is the Democratic candidate for this year's Pennsylvania Senate election. It's a U.S. Senate election in Pennsylvania. He was a Bernie supporter, and so Democratic centrists disliked him at first, but Fetterman trounced the boring centrist he ran against in the primary. Now that Fetterman is critical to Democrats retaining control of the Senate, the party is funneling money into his race. I like John Fetterman a lot and have high hopes for him. He speaks movingly about the work he did improving the economic health of down-and-out Braddock, Pennsylvania, when he served as its mayor. Fetterman seems to genuinely care about his city. Pete Buttigieg, on the other hand, seemed to very obviously be using his position as mayor as a springboard to higher office. Fetterman is currently recovering from a stroke and has had to campaign mostly online. He has certainly embraced the online aspect of campaigning, using Twitter to relentlessly troll his opponent, celebrity Dr. Mehmet Oz. Most of Fetterman's barbs attempt to paint Dr. Oz as a carpetbagger who had not spent much time in Pennsylvania before running for Senate there. A Fetterman ad shows images of Dr. Oz's New Jersey mansion of a video of him kissing his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and says he's not one of us. Fetterman has put a great deal of effort into pursuing his line of attack, going so far as to get Jersey Shore's Snooki to record a message to Dr. Oz. Previously, to troll Oz, Fetterman hired a plane to fly a banner over New Jersey welcoming Oz home. Is that what campaign dollars are going toward? Fetterman's latest stunt is starting a petition to get Dr. Oz inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame. Fetterman's tactics have certainly attracted press coverage. The New York Times notes his towel-snapping virtual campaign of sassy online memes, and the Daily Beast asks, could John Fetterman shitpost his way to the Senate? I'll be honest. I think all of this is stupid and morally frivolous, and I wish John Fetterman would not do it. Even if it turns out that in 2022 you can shitpost your way to the Senate, you shouldn't. A progressive Senate candidate should force a discussion on things that matter, not get the media talking about how sick his Twitter burns are. I also think Fetterman is taking a big risk here by assuming that Pennsylvania voters can actually be influenced by memes. D. Ray McKesson found out the hard way that being big on Twitter doesn't translate into electoral success when he badly lost. Baltimore's Democratic primary election for mayor. Okay, let's pause here. Here's the thing, Nathan. Fetterman is up in all the polls right now. So, is it possible Fetterman loses? Absolutely. In fact, I would put it 60-40 that Fetterman does lose. I think Dr. Oz has a better chance in this election, namely because it appears to be a Republican wave election year. Now, having said that, Fetterman, I think, is putting up the best fight he possibly can. And I think it's a little glib to compare Fetterman to D. Ray McKesson. As far as I know, D. Ray McKesson has had no electoral success. John Fetterman has already had electoral success. Now, beyond that, the argument that this is just, well, it's just memes and it's just online trolling and shitposting, don't agree. And here's the reason I don't agree. The heart of the message from John Fetterman is not just that Dr. Oz is a carpetbagger, which is accurate, by the way. It's an accurate attack. He is that. He is from New Jersey. But it's also that he's an out-of-touch elitist who's not going to represent working people. The line of attack is not just, hey man, you're from New Jersey. It's, you're from New Jersey, you are mega wealthy, you live in a mansion, you're out of touch, and I am a Pennsylvanian, and I represent hardworking Pennsylvanians. That's the line of attack. It's a mischaracterization to say it's just extremely online trolling. It's in part trolling, but at the heart of it is an accurate argument. Now, by the way, I've admitted this before. If I was advising John Fetterman, I wouldn't have said go with a carpetbagger argument. But now watching him do it and seeing how effective it is in terms of the results, I say, oh, that was actually a brilliant argument. Because it works. People in Pennsylvania, regardless of their political affiliation, can understand and acknowledge the objective reality that Dr. Oz is just trying to buy a Senate seat from there. He's not from there. He's out of state. And again, he's elitist. He's ultra wealthy. He's not going to represent the interests of working class people. And John Fetterman will do so much better than Dr. Oz would. And so look, there's this strain of lefties who are like anti-fun. Like, okay, yeah, Fetterman can go up there and give a speech or post a 20,000 word essay, as Nathan J. Robinson likes to do oftentimes, and do a dry dissertation on the marginal tax rates. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. Now, I'm not out here saying, hey, don't discuss policy shit. I think you should mostly focus on policy shit. But I also think if you can troll and meme and shitpost and it's substantive as well and it works, well, that's a win all around. Look, I find it supremely ironic that he compares Fetterman to Bernie Sanders and is like, Fetterman should be more like Bernie Sanders. That's the implication. Bernie Sanders lost, dippy. So it's time to improve upon what Bernie did. Yes, focusing on policy is central and important and the main thing when you're talking about politics because we want to improve people's lives. But in the process of doing that, you should be having fun. You should be attracting people. And turns out, if you have fun and you joke around and you meme and you troll, it's attractive to people. Now, that's not my opinion, Nathan. That's borne out in the polls. Now, ultimately, John Fetterman might lose, okay? And at that point, Nathan J. Robinson might turn around and say, see, it's because of all the trolling and the online shitposting. I would look at that and say the national mood and the fact that it's a wave election doomed him despite the fact that he ran a phenomenal campaign. That's how I would look at it. I just want lefties lighten up a little bit and have some fun. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to be relatable. What Fetterman is doing here is massively relatable. Not just to the online left, because if it was just to the online left, he'd be down by 25 points. And he's not. And he's not, Nathan. So it's just funny. You make this argument when he's up in the polls. Wait till he's down. And there might come a time when he's down. Again, it's a red wave election year. But he makes the argument now because he can't help himself. This reminds me of the article he wrote about Crystalline Sagar, who he's very, very critical. And there are absolutely criticisms of Sagar. I disagree with Sagar. He's on the right, or I don't know, now he might consider himself an enlightened centrist or whatever. That's fine. But you don't need to drag down Crystal to disagree with Sagar. And he did that. And now we have an effective left campaign, or relatively left campaign. And Nathan J. Robinson is, I don't like this. You should do dry dissertations where you talk about marginal tax rates and bore people. How can you look at something that's working and that's fun and is still substantive at the heart of it? Because it's not just that he's a carpetbagger, Dr. Oz. It's also that he's elitist and out of touch and not representing working people. And you disagree with it? I don't get it. One of the core problems with Fetterman's approach is that it assumes voters care more about whether Dr. Oz is from New Jersey than they do about minimum wage growth. Now, that's not fair. That is not fair. It's not like Fetterman doesn't talk about policy. He, of course, talks about policy. But he's also charismatic and entertaining. And you're focusing on the charisma and the entertaining stuff and besmirching it while pretending like he's not talking about policy. Grocery prices, healthcare costs, or gun violence. Personally, I don't actually think the carpetbagger point is that compelling. Well, look, here's the thing, Nathan. I agree with you, which is why I said if I was running Fetterman's campaign, I'd tell him, don't go with the carpetbagger thing. It's not that substantive. But now, having watched him do it and looking at the results, I was wrong. I was wrong. Fetterman was right. It works. It works because it turns out sometimes people are a little silly and they think like, well, if you're from out of state, you can't possibly care about the people in state, or, you know, somehow your ideas are less relevant now and your policies are less relevant now because you're not one of us. I think that's sort of weak too, but people don't think it's weak. People respond to it. There's something visceral and innate about it. You know, there's something compelling about that of like, I'm one of you, he's not. Because if a candidate had good politics but was from out of state, I'd vote for them in a heartbeat over someone who had terrible politics but deep local roots. And that's why, Nathan, that's why I agree with you on that point. That's why I agree with you that it's not a persuasive argument to me. But there are times when I feel something and most people don't agree with me. And the same is true of you. Because yes, if I saw a candidate, if there was a left candidate who I loved, who was from out of state, I'd vote for them over, you know, a New Yorker who was in state. A New Yorker who had bad politics or worse politics but was in state. So I agree with you on the substance of that criticism. But it's also possible for something to not appeal to me and Nathan J. Robinson that appeals to the average voter, and that thing works. And that's what's happening. Fetterman is appealing to an emotional sense of Pennsylvania pride and the state's suspicion of Jerseyites. Oh, God, Nathan. It's fair to say you want candidates who actually know your state well, and that there is an arrogance to rich people who simply assume they can represent any state they like. Witness Nick Kristof's entitled delusion that he could run for governor of Oregon because he was an important man who'd enjoy the job. But ultimately, what is wrong with Dr. Oz is his horrible reactionary politics. Yes, and that is also being highlighted. That's also being highlighted by Fetterman. Oz's campaign platform includes responding to the global Chinese threat, Jesus, being a dear ally to Israel, cracking down on unauthorized immigrants, escalating fossil fuel production, pushing back on cancel culture, stopping abortion, preventing gun control, giving control of elections to the states, and giving police a powerful voice in Washington. He is running as a hard-right Republican and needs to be kept out of the Senate because of what he will do to the country. Fetterman made good ads a few months back about unions, climate justice, healthcare, minimum wage. Wait. You're destroying your own argument here, Nathan. You are. You're saying, well, now look, Fetterman has been substantive. So then why are you writing this article? Why are you writing this article? It's like when he wrote the thing about Crystal and Sagar, and I was like, now I like Crystal. But then you go on to say, like, here's all the reasons why you shouldn't be sitting next to this guy. I don't know what you're doing, man. I don't know. Look, it's a tough line to walk, right? And we've talked about this a number of times on the show, and I've talked about it in interviews. When you're on the left, part of you wants to be like, I am the truth teller, and I'm going to keep it real to everybody. People who are not in my camp, people who are in my camp, people who are my closest allies. I'm going to keep it real, and I'm going to call people out when they're wrong, and I'm going to be the sole voice of reason. That's one instinct people have. The other instinct people have is we need to have solidarity, which kind of flies at odds, and it flies in the face of the idea of like, I'm going to call everybody and everything out. Because solidarity is, you sort of let bygones be bygones, where there's minor disagreements, sweep it under the rug, no big deal, and you move forward together. Nathan J. Robinson has clearly fallen on the side of, no, I'm going to be the one true voice of reason, and I will critique people, other leftists or nominal leftists, even in an instance where it's strategically dumb. Like, why would you not write an article talking about the effectiveness of Fetterman's campaign and how other leftists should copy it because it is empirically, objectively working? If you have the right ideas, if you have the right policy beliefs, and you can marry that with like a fun edginess that appeals to people, why would you not support that? It's unbelievable. Anyway, Fetterman made a few good ads a few months back about unions, climate justice, healthcare, minimum wage, but now I keep seeing headlines about his memes and trolling. Most of this is focused on Oz's residency rather than his scary agenda or his background as a snake oil salesman. In fact, the far more devastating criticism of Dr. Oz is that he is a quack who got rich peddling false hope to sick people. Yeah, that's one of them. And but what Fetterman is doing right now is working. So he can add this to the repertoire, but I would definitely not say stop what you're doing because what he's doing is working. You're saying stop what you're doing here and focus on this thing that I just made up, and I will pretend like I know that this thing is going to land even better than what you're doing now. Nathan, you don't know. You don't know. Give credit where it's due. The proof is in the pudding. There's at least one well-made anti-Oz ad that hits this theme hard. So you're saying he did that? I can't. Although it is also going after him for illegally employing undocumented workers. Hypocrisy, of course, but not terribly compelling. That's going to be compelling to Pennsylvania voters. And again, the numbers show it. And it doesn't emphasize enough the harm caused by his prescription of useless miracle cures. Look, Nathan, I like Nathan. I got nothing against Nathan. Him and I, in terms of our politics, were probably 90% in agreement. But man, he's a micromanager. He's a micromanager. He's trying to micromanage this campaign into oblivion. Now, there are legitimate criticisms of Fetterman that his extraordinarily successful and cool campaign is not working is not one of them, because it is working. As I say, maybe John Fetterman's memes about Dr. Oz residency will be compelling to Pennsylvania voters. He's leading the polls at the moment. Why are you writing this article? But Democrats who want voters to come out for them really ought to emphasize their agenda rather than just mocking their opponent. I don't know why we're gonna stop reading this now. You're setting up a false dichotomy. This is a massive false dichotomy. You can do both. That's what I try to do on this show. I talk about the issues, I talk about the policies, I talk about the things that I think would help fix the country, but we also laugh and joke and have a good time, and we're silly and we're stupid and we're funny and we're edgy, and we just try to have fun with it. Nathan wants to get rid of the silly, fun, edgy, that side of it, and just be serious and just talk about the agenda. Again, I love Bernie, and in 2016, I think it was basically stolen from him, and the WikiLeaks emails sort of prove that, right? But in 2020, homeboy lost. He lost. And he made a number of mistakes. And instead of looking at that Bernie campaign and saying, well, how do we improve upon it? Nathan J. Robinson's like, no, that's the only way to run, because I, Nathan J. Robinson, say so. But if you see something that is in the same spirit, but it's fun and edgy and online, etc., and it's working, why can't you just be like, oh, cool. Well, I said we'd stop reading. I'll just give it a little more. What will you do in the Senate? I want to see progressive candidates get beyond the economic Bill of Rights. I'd love that. I want them to show that they're not going to be do-nothing Democrats who think their job is finished when they beat the Republican. It worries me that a Fetterman ad that popped up for me on YouTube was all about how I should donate to help flip the seat blue, not about what John Fetterman would actually do as a senator. Issues went unmentioned. But he hasn't not talked about issues, Nathan. Look, are there criticisms of Fetterman? Absolutely. The Vanguard guys pointed out he's terrible on Israel. Criticize him all day long about that, and I'd be agreeing with you, Nathan J. Robinson. But this ain't it. This ain't it. The best criticism of Fetterman that I can think of is it was very suspicious to me that the Democratic establishment laid down their weapons against Fetterman. So Fetterman beat, who was it? Connor Lamb, some way worse centrist. And I guess Fetterman met with the Democratic establishment and assured them in one way or another, you ain't got nothing to worry about, I'm with you. That concerns me more than his effective campaign that's working. That concerns me more. So, and in all seriousness, if Fetterman wins, which is a question mark, we don't know if he's going to win, what I would fear is, yes, he gets to the Senate and he becomes a very milquetoast Democrat. He's not in the vein of a Bernie Sanders, and he's more in the vein of, I don't know, I don't want to say a Chuck Schumer because that's really bad, but maybe he is, right? That's what worries me about him, and there are some signs that maybe that'll happen. But as of this moment right now, the heart of the criticism from Nathan against Fetterman is, stop your extremely online trolling. I don't like that. I don't like your campaign. And that's just not good criticism. Because it's possible he ends up like Bernie. He supported Bernie, right? And if he ends up like Bernie and he got the power by being edgy and online and trolling while also talking about issues, that's a win. And that's something we should mimic in the future with other left candidates, not besmirch and poo-poo and put down. So anyway, I'm not going to keep going here with this article, but you guys get the gist of it. It's not even that much longer. You guys get the gist of it. Immature mudslinging. He should stop. Ironically, and there's a good note to end this on, I sincerely believe the immature mudslinging is coming from Nathan J. Robinson against Fetterman. That's what I think. Again, you want to criticize him on policy? I'm with you. In fact, I'm certain that every policy criticism Nathan would have of Fetterman, I'd almost certainly agree with Robinson and not Fetterman. I think that's all fair game. But the micromanaging and nitpicking strategy and saying it's bad when it's objectively working, that's just dumb. So you're the immature mudslinger right now, Nathan, and you should stop. I sincerely believe you're better than this.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.